So, good evening students. I'm really glad to be here with you, and I hope there are lots of questions, and it's not going to be only me speaking and no response from you. So, today we are going to talk about making presentations, which is part of EEG 4, as you know. So, get your pens and papers ready and be ready to ask questions. So, let's first look at the first slide. Okay? I'm just going to begin right at the at once. So let's start with presentations. Okay? Can we have the first slide, please? So how do you prepare for presentations? How should you make an effective delivery? How do you prepare for outlines of presentations? Then we are going to talk about use of signaling, signposting, listing techniques. We are going to talk about the importance of body language in the presentation, summaries and conclusions, then question and answer sessions at the end of the presentation. So I'll repeat what we're going to do. You're going to learn how to make effective presentations in terms of how to prepare for presentations. We're going to give you hints on effective delivery, how to prepare for outlines of presentations, and I'll be reading stuff which will talk about preparation, effective delivery. I'll give you examples. So I'll be basically reading out some examples as well. I'll be also talking about signaling, signposting and listing techniques. The importance of body language in a presentation, that's very important, and we're going to discuss that in detail. Summaries and conclusions, and finally question and answer sessions at the end of the presentation. So this is what our my presentation is going to be all about. So let's then get on with the job. I'm going to get to the next slide, which is, I'm sorry for these little hiccups, but anyway. So when you give a presentation, how you deliver it is as important as what you say. So the how of, in other words, the delivery is as important as the content. It is also important to know your audience. So beside knowing your subject, you should also know your audience. Like if I sit here and I may know the subject, but if I don't know whom I'm talking to, then it may go above your heads, or it may be too difficult for you. So it's very important for the teacher to know, or for anyone who's presenting to know, what the subject is, what the audience is, and how well you make the presentation. The whole packaging becomes very important. So now let's begin with the beginning. That is, you begin with a greeting. Okay, so it could be good morning ladies and gentlemen, good morning everybody, and I'll just read out some more extracts of greeting the audience and introducing oneself. For example, you could say, good morning, I'd like to welcome you all here this morning. I am Anju Sehgal Gupta of Indira Gandhi National Open University. Or you could say, good morning, I'm delighted to be here. My name is Anju Sehgal Gupta. Or you could say, good morning ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anju Sehgal Gupta and I'm the professor at Indira Gandhi National Open University. So you could begin with any of these, in any of these ways. And another way could be, good morning everyone. Thank you all for coming. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anju Gupta. I'm from Indira Gandhi National Open University. So these are various ways of introducing oneself. Then you need to say a few words about yourself. So you say that before I carry on, let me tell you something about myself. I've been working at Indira Gandhi National Open University for 20 years. Or my experience in the field of business communication is from so and so date when I joined Indira Gandhi National Open University, or when I did a course on English for practical purposes. There could be something also about welcoming the audience. You must welcome the audience. They've taken the trouble to come to listen to you. So you say, welcome to Indira Gandhi National Open University. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. Or you could say, thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. So all these are strategies of greeting the audience, of introducing yourself, and of welcoming the audience. And I'll go slow actually. I think I was going a little fast when I was reading out stuff to you. I'll go a bit slow. So if you wish to note down anything, you may do so. So I'll go back to the slide. Can we have the slide again? Yeah. Then you go on to the topic. So you can say that I'd like to say a few words about, I'm here to make a presentation on, this morning I'm going to be talking to you about, telling you about, showing you, reporting, taking a look at. And there are some more phrases that I could use and help you with. You could say, what I'd like to do today is to present our new list of, say, client services. Or you can say, as you know, I'm here today to talk about our latest product. Or you could say, the purpose or the topic of my talk is to present a proposal for the new production site. Another way would be, in my presentation this morning, I'll be reviewing our sales performance over the last 6 months. So and so forth. These are ways of beginning, of stating your purpose, of telling the audience what the topic is going to be. Or so now let's go on to the next point, which is the outline. It's very important when you make a presentation to give a very clear outline to the so that to your audience, so that they know what to expect in the course of your talk. Of course, any talk, any presentation is going to give some information, but it is a good idea to tell them how you're dividing your talk, so they can follow your argument well. So you could say, I'll be dealing with 3 areas. If you're outlining, I'll be dealing with 3 areas. It's going to be, say, customer service, sales figures, how to expand, for example. So they know that you're going to first talk on customer service, you're going to talk about expansion, you're going to talk about the 3rd area. Then you can say, I've divided my talk into 3 parts. Then you go on to say, I'll start off by filling you in on the background to XYZ. Or you could say, I'll start off by bringing you up to date on last year's figures. Or I could start off by giving you an overview of what happened last year. Or you can say, I'd like to start off my talk by making a few observations about the sales figures this year. And then you say that, and then I'll go on to discuss in more depth I will highlight what I see as the main point. I'll make detailed recommendations regarding. Okay, so you start off, then you say that I will be making starting you by giving you the background. I'll build you up on an overview of last year's performance. Then I'll make a few observations about it, and then I'll go on to discuss in more depth last year's versus this year's performance. I'll highlight what are the main areas of similarities and differences, and then make detailed recommendations. So in this way, the audience knows what they're going to expect, and that is really very important. Then you also tell them what you're going to conclude with. Then I will conclude with, I'll end my presentation with, and you also at the outset tell them that I will, at the end of my presentation, I will invite you to ask me any questions that you may have. Now this whole business of questions is a tricky business, because sometimes presenters don't mind if they are interrupted. So it should be made very clear to the audience that do you welcome questions at the end, or you don't mind fielding questions right in the middle. So that should be very, very clear. So I'll just give you some more information on the outline of the presentation, for instance, from the examples which I wish to read out. So if you have your papers and pencils out, you can start noting, because this is language. If you have this language, this is formulaic language in a sense. If you have this language, you can use it anytime you wish to. So you can say that I'll start by telling you who we are and what we do, for instance. Then we look at what the customer needs from us, and then I'll explain how we can meet those needs. Finally, I'll give you our prices and show you that we represent value for money. This is if you're meeting, say, new customers. Or if you're trying to suggest solutions to a problem. Now supposing you are suggesting solutions to a problem, what would you say? As you know, I'm here to suggest some solutions to the problem. I'll first of all outline the methods we use to establish the causes of the problem. Then I'll discuss our findings. And finally, we'll look at alternative solutions, and I'll make a recommendation. So even where it's problem solving, you're telling them how you're going to. Yeah. Please ask the question.
Hello.
Yes. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening. Please ask the question.
Yes. How to make a good presentation?
Yes.
How to make a good presentation for business purpose.
Yeah. Now, my talk is on how to make a good presentation for business purposes. So please listen carefully. I'm making.
How to make? Yes.
Yeah. So I'm making.
How to make a good presentation?
Yes.
For business purpose.
All right.
Please.
Yeah. I'll be answering that throughout the course of this 20 more minutes that I have. Okay. Thank you for your question. Thank you very much for your question. So now we're still at the outline. So I don't know your name, but whoever you are, I'm at the outline of the presentation. It's very important to tell at the outset how you're going to outline your presentation. So you say, as I said earlier, that I've divided my talk into three main parts. Firstly, I'd like you to remind you of how things looked at this time last year. Secondly, I'd like to discuss our performance over the last 6 months, and finally, I'll look at our target for the next 6 months. So that is if you're a salesperson. You can say that I'm dividing my talk into three main parts. Firstly, Secondly, I'll talk about our performance over the last 6 months, and finally, I'll look at the target for the next 6 months. Another way to begin to talk about an outline would be, I'll begin with some general comments about the company, and then I'll deal with each department in turn. After that, we'll look at future trends. Yes, please. Can you tell me your name, please? Madam, can you tell me your name? Please ask the question. Okay. Then, or you can say, I'm going to talk about 3 main areas. First, I'll describe the history of the company. Then I'll go on to talk about the current business, and finally. Okay. Then it's also very important, and I'm addressing this especially to the student in Darbhanga, is to tell your audience how long you're going to take. That's very important when you're making a presentation, to tell your audience how long you're going to take. You can say, I'll only take about 30 minutes or so of your time. Or I'll be talking about the current status for half an hour, and then I will make my recommendation in about 10 minutes, and then I will you're allowed questions for about 15 minutes. You can specify each part of the time that you allow for each part of the presentation. As I said, it's very important to tell the audience when you're going to deal with the questions, and this is the kind of language you can use, so you can note this down. You can say, if you don't mind, I'll deal with the questions at the end of the talk. Okay, if you don't mind, I'll deal with the questions at the end of the talk. Or you can say, please feel free to interrupt at any time if you like to ask a question. So, but you must make this very clear to your audience. Then I'll go on to the next slide. Okay, this is more signposting. For instance, showing steps, I've already done that. First of all, let's look at, then, next, lastly, I've already looked at. Then using visuals. But before I do that, I'll go back to the earlier slide, because I want to actually give you some more language that you could use in signposting. Then I'll come to the visual part of it. So I want to basically give you some more language for signposting. Now, for instance, handouts. You may wish to give handouts to your audience. Then you must inform, because the audience will be making notes. So then you must inform your audience that there's no need to make notes. So you can say something like this. You can say, there's no need for you to take notes. At the end of the presentation, I'll give you a complete set of handouts containing all the important points. So you could say that, or you could say, you needn't copy any of the data or any of the visuals. I'll give you copies of everything later on. Or you could give them the copies earlier. So you can say, I hope you all have a copy of my handout. It contains all the visuals that I'll be using, or all the data that I'll be using. Alright? And now, how to get started? You know, you've sort of talked of the handouts. Now, how do you get started in a presentation? So I have said that you can say that, let's begin. Our company was founded in 1960, or Indira Gandhi National Open University was founded in 1985. Or you can say something like, let's get started, shall we? Just something brisk as, let's get started, shall we? It's very important to involve your audience as well. So you should use what are known as rhetorical questions. So you can say, you can ask questions like, supposing you lost one of your biggest clients, how would you deal with this? you know. So instead of saying, okay, I am going to now talk on this, you can sort of involve the audience, and the way to involve the audience is rhetorical questions. Or another way would be, and the campaign was unsuccessful. And what did we learn from this? So you again involve your audience. So by asking a question, and what did we learn from this? We have learned not to be complacent, and then you go on with the facts and figures. But by asking, and what did we learn from this? You're not expecting the audience to actually answer you, but you're involving the audience by asking this rhetorical question. Or over the last few years there have been a drop in sales. Okay, please ask the question. Please ask the question.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello?
There is no response.
There is a response, please. Hello?
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 Just listen to me please, I have a question. How to make a good presentation? A good
Yes?
presentation.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes?
How to make a good presentation
Yeah?
for business purpose.
Okay.
Please tell me.
Okay. See, when you...
I know what is presentation because I am watching teleconferencing at RC Darbhanga.
Yes?
So I have a question.
Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm outlining how to make a good presentation. Actually my talk is on how to make a good presentation. The whole talk is on this. So please listen carefully and you will then understand. Okay, so then let's go on to the next point. Using visuals. So I talked about how to involve the audience. One of the very important questions is how to involve the audience. So one of the ways of involving the audience is by asking rhetorical questions. Then using visuals is also a very important part of any presentation. So please, you cannot just keep talking, you have to use visuals. Even when I'm making a presentation on making presentations, I have this PowerPoint which is actually to take away the monotony of one person talking. In fact, you can switch off when somebody is talking, but if you have visuals, people remember, and people look at it and people take notes. So that's very important. So visuals can be things like bar graphs if you are showing facts and figures. It could be line graphs, pie charts, pictograms, maps, photographs, charts, PowerPoint slides, and especially if you want to show statistical information or to make comparisons. So when you're introducing a visual, how do you do it? You say, I'd like to show you something, or have a look at this figure, or this graph shows, or this graph represents, or you point with your pointer that here we can see that the sales have drastically fallen. Or let's look at this amazing picture of how the sales rose in the month of June and then fell drastically in the month of July. So these are some of the introductory words that you can use. There's some more of them also. Now if you're making comparisons, for examples, you can say, let's compare X with Y. Okay? Let's compare the data of 2007 with June with 2007 July, for instance, or 2006 June with 2007 June. Okay? And let's see where we went wrong. Here, or you say, here you see a comparison between. And for the closing of the presentation, you can say, finally, to sum up, I'd like to sum up now with the comparison by showing you how much there is a difference between last year's performance and this year's performance. That concludes my presentation. You can say something like that. To conclude, I would like to say we need to X, Y, Z. So these are some ways of concluding. Let's go on to the next slide, which is to show you how to summarize. You must summarize. Whatever you have said, you must eventually concisely say it. And what does the summary do? The summary restates the main points and emphasizes what the audience must remember. It should be brief and must not contain any new information, and that's very important. A summary must not give any new information. It basically gives you the main points, but more than that, it also is to show the audience that there are certain things that they need to remember, and it should not most certainly contain any new information. Then don't just present data of summarized results and leave the audience to draw its own conclusions. You also have to give a conclusion. You need to state the logical consequences of what you have said, and your conclusion must also contain recommendations. But all this must be brief. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is, don't just give the summarized results to the audience and that's it, that you now expect the audience to draw their own conclusions. That's not right. As a presenter, you must give the conclusion as well, even if it apparently appears that there is nothing new in your conclusion, but you must give the conclusion. Okay, so let's have a look at the next slide. Yeah, and you need to state that the logical consequences of what you have said, and the conclusion must also contain recommendations, but the conclusion must be very brief. Now I'd like to then go on to the next slide about questions. Now during a presentation, you are required to give, as I said, the audience a chance to ask questions, and the questions could be at the beginning or at the end, and your policy on questions, as I earlier said, has to be stated right at the outset. It must be at the beginning that you must say whether you are ready to field questions in the beginning or at the end. Now I've already said that. You can also invite the audience to a discussion, by the way. You can read the slide, and you can also invite the audience to a discussion, because after all, a presentation is to give and take information from each other. Alright. Then now, how do you handle questions? That's a tricky area, so I've dwelt quite a lot of time on it, and I hope the girl from Darbhanga is listening to this, because very important part of presentation is how do you handle the questions. One important way and a good way is to anticipate questions and prepare your responses in advance. So you have a fair idea that these are the areas that the audience is going to ask you questions, and you have to prepare the responses in advance. Where difficult questions are concerned, it's wise to rehearse your answers. Now listen very carefully when people are asking you questions, and there would be a temptation to interrupt, but keep quiet, listen carefully and try and understand the questions. If you make sure that you understand the questions, and if you don't, paraphrase it if necessary. Repeat the question if needed, because it's very important that you don't waste time on, if you misunderstood a question and you talk tangentially, then you will be wasting time, which is not what you should do. Give yourself time to think. It's not that pat that you have to answer. give yourself time to think. Then be honest. If you can't answer the question, you must say so. It's not that you have to be God Almighty and answer, that you must answer everything. Keep a control on the audience. Don't allow any chaos. That's a big temptation that might happen. That it becomes such a long discussion with one person, or everybody talks at the same time, and there's no way that there's chaos in the room. So that's not a right policy. Keep a control over the audience. Don't allow for any chaos. Then there will be some people who would try to badger you, would ask irrelevant questions. So ensure that you entertain only relevant questions. The other questions you can just ignore. Then keep a lookout for time. That is, don't allow the question. I've already told you that when you're dealing with questions, that or giving the outline, you must time. You must say that there's only 15 minutes for questions, or only 10 minutes for questions, or whatever you want. So because this could go on and on and on, the discussion. So you have to be very clear that you're going to spend 15 minutes on questions or 10 minutes on questions, and no more than that. And be polite. Of course, don't forget to thank the audience at the end. And now I'd like to again give you some information of how to deal with questions. So I'll whatever I have said, I'll just be giving you some more examples of how to say it. So if you have your papers and pencils, even the lady from Darbhanga, please note them down. So when you invite questions, this is the way to do it. I'd like to thank you for your attention. That's the way you end your presentation. I'd like to thank you for your attention. Now, if there are any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them. So that's one way of doing it. Or you can say, thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I'm just giving you a variety of language so that you can use it in different situations. Now, supposing you have not understood a question. That's another point. If you've not understood a question, so you have to clarify before answering. I did say you can repeat the question. You can paraphrase the question. So this is how you would do it. Sorry, could you say that again, please? Very simple, straightforward. Sorry, could you say that again, please? Or, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying. Would you mind repeating your question? Then, or you can say, if I've understood your question correctly, you would like me to explain the criteria we use to choose the basis for our Indian operations. So, in a sense, you're making sure that you've understood the question. So if the person has said something different, they say, no, I actually meant something else. Then supposing you want to again clarify, you say, when you say South America, do you mean South America generally, or Brazil where we are at present? So you're getting down, in other words, to the specifics. Very important to get down to the specifics. Then there's sometimes it's not such a good idea to answer a question. So how do you avoid answering the questions? You should also have the language to avoid answering a question. So you can say, I'm afraid I'm not the right person to give you the answer to this question. This is for the chairman to decide. If it is something on policy matter and you have no right to do it, so you just say, I'm afraid I'm not the right person to answer such a question. This is for the chairman to decide. Or I'm afraid I'll not be able to answer the question at present. Maybe you don't have enough data. But if you give me your phone number, I'll try to get back to you in the future. So that's one way to avoid questions. So these are some of the tactics that we use when we are talking about how to handle questions. So now I'll go on to the next slide, which is using your voice adequately. Now, Now, when you make a presentation, there's no need to speak more loudly than usual. You know, even if you, for instance, are disagreeing with somebody, there is no need to, for instance, speak more loudly than usual. For instance, if you're showing disagreement with one of the questions, you can show it tactfully without raising your voice. You can say, yes, I see your point, but I know you will appreciate how important it is to keep up to date with the latest technology, you know, for instance. Or you could say, well, I have some doubts about that, but don't get into a fight. Don't raise your voice. In a presentation, you don't have to speak louder than usual. Then vary your tone. You know, it's very, very difficult to listen to somebody who speaks in a monotone. It's really very difficult. So, important to vary the tone. Also, don't speak too fast or too slowly. If you speak too slowly, people will switch off. And if you speak too fast, a lot of people will not understand you. So that's a must do to check your speed. Speak clearly. Pause for emphasis and effect. When you're highlighting information, pause for emphasis and effect. Alright? So as I said, the downside also, so don't whisper, don't shout, don't sound monotonous, don't speak too quickly or too slowly. That's the downside. Now we'll go on to the next slide. Can we have the next slide, please? Now this is about body language. I said right at the beginning that we are going to talk about body language. Now, one of the very important aspects of any presentation is the body language. That is, how do you present yourself? It's not only the content, it is not only the subject matter, but it is also something about yourself. So think about eye contact. Have eye contact with your audience. So I hope that's clear to the girl in the Darbhanga. You're meant to have eye contact in business when you're making a presentation, even in business communication. Use notes on cards to jog your memory. Alright? So, but don't read aloud from your notes. That's not what you should be doing. Don't read aloud from your notes. I'm making a presentation, I am reading aloud, but because I'm also a teacher. I'm also teaching, so that's why I'm reading aloud from, because I want to give you examples. But when you make a business presentation, then don't read aloud from your notes. Use notes to jog your memory, because it shouldn't be that you're speaking in a sense by heart. You know, it shouldn't be that, oh, now this person is going to forget. And so also when you're making eye contact, don't, you know, sometimes one is nervous, but don't look at the floor or the ceiling or at your notes all the time. Find some sympathetic face in the audience and make eye contact with that person. Okay? So even if you're nervous, one sympathetic face can also sometimes calm you down, who's nodding very vociferously to whatever you're saying. Then stay in one place. You know, some people move around nervously, and that's very irritating. Stay in one place. Don't move around nervously. Then we go on to the next slide. As I said, stand still. Don't make unnecessary gestures. Some people just, you know, yeah, their hands go all over the place. They're all over the place. Don't do that. Stand still. Don't make unnecessary gestures. Stay in front of the room. There are people who walk up and down. In fact, I had a tendency recently, because I was conducting a workshop, and I tended to go to the middle, but the audience did tell me that please go right in front. So it's very important not to go in the middle, even when you feel that it's a large hall, and you know, I mean, that's one way to be really to sort of make contact with the audience. But the audience, let me assure you, do not like it. So better to be in front. That's where they expect you to be. So be there. Then have a positive facial expression. Even if you're a bit nervous, remember that they are also not waiting to trip you, the audience, but they're waiting for you to perform well. So have a positive facial expression, have a pleasant expression. So don't look negative, and don't fiddle with the equipment. You know, there is a tendency to say hello, 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 fiddle with the equipment, fiddle here, fiddle there. Even in your PowerPoint, be very clear where you want to go. Don't unnecessarily keep your papers all over the place. Everything should be neat and clean, so that when you make a presentation, you know what to look at and where to do things. So that's a very important aspect of any presentation. And I think that's where we've come to the end of our slides, and I'll just you know, sort of give all the tips that have really gone in the presentation. And I hope the girl from Darbhanga got some useful information that she can use in her presentation. So the first thing that is very important is that you greet the audience, and you welcome the audience, and you give some information about yourself. Alright? So that's very important. Then you must give an outline of the presentation. That first you're going to talk about the sales figures of last year, then you're going to talk about this year, then you're going to make a recommendation, how you're going to summarize, and you're going to conclude. So that should be all very clearly spelled out. The outline is a must. But before the outline is your statement of purpose. You must state what the topic of the presentation is. After the statement of purpose, you go on to giving a clear outline of what you're going to do in the presentation. The policy for questions is also very, very important. Are you going to field the questions? Are you going to accept interruption? Then say so. Are you going to, do you want questions at the end? Say so. Also tell the audience how much time you're going to spend on the presentation. I mean, you go on for hours and the audience doesn't know when you're going to end. So you tell them it's going to be 30 minutes, it's going to be 1 hour, so they expect. Nobody wants not to know when the presentation is going to end. And then I talked about various ways of signposting, the beginning, middle, end, how to signpost visuals, then how to go on to a summary. And when you do a summary, make it brief, give a whole, but do not give any new information in your summary. Of course, all presentations or many of the presentations have recommendation and some kind of conclusion. After which you field the questions, and one of the very important aspects of fielding questions was to be honest, be polite. You can also get into a discussion, but be again very clear how long you want how many questions you're going to field and how long you want the discussion to be. Then don't forget to, which I didn't mention in my presentation, but don't forget to say farewell to the audience as well. They have been, even if they're your juniors, they've been kind enough to listen to you, and so please thank the audience for being there, for listening to you. And then finally, be very careful about body language. Even if you're nervous, you have to find ways of hiding your nervousness and make eye contact. Similarly, be very careful about how you modulate your voice. Don't be monotonous. Vary your pitch, intonation. Make it interesting for the audience to have a pleasing personality. Have your voice vary. And so if you follow all these, whatever I have said today, I assure you, this lady from Darbhanga, I wish I knew your name, you would do very well in the presentations that you make in whatever business that you are. Thank you very much for listening to me.